I mean, we are indoctrinating people into this from childhood. So if you have negative thoughts about aging, don't feel bad about it. I mean, you have been cooked in this cultural soup that tells you it's bad, it's scary, old people are gross, just all these things. So the first thing you have to do to combat ageism is pay attention to the thoughts in your own head.
And I think that's important. We really do need to reframe the perspective on aging.
Because if you retire and you don't have things that give you meaning and purpose and make you want to get out of bed on a Wednesday morning, that is actually really bad for you because your
Yeah.
brain needs stimulation. It needs things to think about, it needs things to do. Retiring and doing nothing but playing golf or watching TV all day is actually pretty terrible for your brain. And that's a downhill slide you don't want to start.
This is the Buried in Work podcast, where we share tips and interview experts to help you simplify estate planning and end-of-life tasks.
Corinne Auman is a gerontologist and educator and the founder of Choice Care Navigators, a care management company helping families navigate the complex realities of aging. And Corinne's special. She's got a PhD in psychology, decades of hands-on experience. She is not new to the game here. And she brings a rare blend of both academic insight, which is very important, and real-world solutions that help people focus and confront the challenges of growing older. She's an author. She wrote a book called Keenagers, which we'll talk a little bit about. And we're pretty lucky to have her here today. Corinne, thank you.
Oh, thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Let's start off by talking about your background. How did you first become interested in aging? Why did you start Choice Care Navigators?
I think almost everyone who works with older adults got into it because they had an older adult in their life that they loved and adored. And lots of times that's a family member. So for me, it was my grandparents who we lived right next door to growing up, and I absolutely adored them. And then I watched my grandfather passed away fairly quickly. He got sick, and then it didn't take long before he had passed away. And we realized right after that he had been really protecting my grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know that she had dementia to the extent that she did because he had done such a good job of caregiving and protecting her. My mom and her sister kind of became caregivers overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And getting thrown into that without knowing that it was coming, without any preparation, they were really stressed out and struggled to find resources, right? What's available? What can we afford? And they're kind of in a rural area too, so that made it even harder. And watching them go through that, my grandfather passed away when I was in 8th grade, and my grandmother did not pass away until I was a junior in college. So for all those years, my mom and her sister were taking care of my grandmother and just trying to figure it out as they went along, which is the way most families are doing it. They
Yeah.
are just thrown into it, what feels like unexpectedly, although we can talk about, whether or not it is to be expected, and then struggle to find the resources, struggle to figure out what they need, what they can afford, what's available. And I just thought, that's really dumb. Why isn't there somebody who helps you with that kind of stuff? Thus, a business is born many years later. So I've been in business now 13 years. So 2012 was when I started. That's when I started my business. I looked at my husband and said, that thing I've always talked about doing, I think I should probably go ahead and do it. It's only more complicated now than it was when back when my mom was going through this. There's a lot of people who need help. And so Choice Care Navigators was born.
All right. So now you're wearing a lot of hot hats. You're an author, an entrepreneur, a professor, a care manager. How are all of those different roles informing the others?
Where to start on that?
Yeah.
So my background, my educational background is I have a PhD in developmental psychology, and that you have to pick an age group to specialize in when you do that. And my age group was older adults and aging in general. So that's kind of my academic background. And I still teach some in gerontology classes in a university. So that's continuing. I'm always, learning whatever the new things are, keeping up to date academically. I'm doing care management on a daily basis, running this company where we are working with families who are in crisis usually. I love it when they plan ahead and I'm helping them plan and prepare, but more often than not, it's kind of a panic, we need to know everything today sort of situation. All of that has really informed the book that I wrote because I've written a book about changing your outlook on aging, having a positive outlook on aging,
Hmm.
because older adulthood today is really different than what our stereotypes would tell us it is, and really different than what previous generations may have experienced because we are living longer, we are living healthier. You are really experiencing an extended middle adulthood rather than older adulthood really starting at 65. So, when I started my business, even though I had this educational background, I really thought I was going to be working with 40-year-olds who were caring for 70-year-old parents.
Hmm.
I'm working with 70-year-olds who are caring for 90-something-year-old parents.
Yeah.
That is a much more common scenario, but they're really all still viewed as older adults. And it doesn't make any sense when we classify 65-year-olds as older adults and 95-year-olds as older adults without making any distinctions because there is no other time period in life where we would look at people 30 years apart and go, "Oh yeah, you guys are basically the same."
No, absolutely right. It's kind of funny. My wife and I were with my mom last weekend. We were looking at a few places for her to potentially move into out of the house where she spent the majority of her life now because she's on her own. And we're walking through this assisted facility. Well, it's not really assisted living. It's a senior living community that then has assisted living as part of it if needed. And we're going, holy cow, we could live here. Like, not actually right now, we're a few years below the age limit, but it has the gym, it has the two restaurants, it has this, it has that. And you're going, this isn't that far off. We're in our mid 40s.
Mhm.
We could theoretically be thinking about that, but at the same point in time, there's people that are living there that are 85, 90.
Mhm.
It's mind blowing that we're grouping everybody into this one big bucket.
Yeah. Yeah. So my mom is 80 and I'll be 50 in April. And when I turn 50, she and I can go to the senior movies together for free because we will both qualify as seniors for the senior movies.
Yeah, and yet joining AARP, which I think everybody should do,
Mhm.
you can join regardless of what age you are. I mean, there's a lot of blended grays. All right, so the book is called Keenagers, right?
Mhm.
How did you come up with the name?
So it's Keenagers with a K. Everybody, we hear the T no matter what. And I came up with it because I was really struggling to find positive language around older adulthood. There is all kinds of negative language and somewhat neutral language like older adult, but there's a lot of, geezer, codger, old coot, those kinds of words. So when I was writing the book and I'm talking about telling a new story about aging, changing your perspective on aging, I was like, I need a new word because there's just nothing that has really positive connotations. And I can't take credit for it. A friend of mine, we were brainstorming on it and she called her mom and she said, "Mom, what do you guys like to be called?" And she said, "Oh, the ladies and I at church are called Keenagers." And I thought it was really appropriate because they're keen. Keen means having a high interest in something or being really sharp.
Hmm.
And if you think about older adulthood today, we have a lot of teenagers, people who are still active and engaged and learning and interested in life and the world. And they're keen on doing cool things. So that's where the word came from. And I just think it's really appropriate. And it does have this positive connotation to it that the other language we have doesn't.
Yeah, and I think that's important. We really do need to reframe the perspective on aging. Some people say that ageism is a cultural issue, but in the book, it seems as if you're seeing it show up in business and healthcare, even the way we talk about retirement. What are some of those most surprising places that you've seen it pop up?
I do think it pops up pretty much everywhere because we are such an ageist culture. We are all programmed from childhood to think negatively about growing older. I'll give you a quick example. When my daughter was 12, I took her to a Bruce Springsteen concert. And at the end of the show, Bruce is up there, playing guitar, and he rips open his shirt and he keeps playing. And he's in really good shape, right? He's in his 70s. He's got six-pack abs. He's doing great. And we're driving home afterwards, and I'm like, "Okay, how'd you like the concert?" And she goes, "He shouldn't have ripped open his shirt like that." I was like, "Well, why not?" And she goes, "Because he's a dirty old man." She's 12. She's 12. And the culture has taught her that if you're old, you're a dirty old man.
Yeah.
Right? And if you look at, like, kids' books and things, older women are almost always a witch or an old hag. I mean, we are indoctrinating people into this from childhood. So if you have negative thoughts about aging, don't feel bad about it. I mean, you have been cooked in this cultural soup that tells you it's bad, it's scary, old people are gross, just all these things. So the first thing you have to do to combat ageism is pay attention to the thoughts in your own head, right? It's an inside job to go, well, why do I think that every ache and pain I have is just because I'm growing older?
Mhm.
Why does my doctor, when I go to the doctor and I tell them I've got certain symptoms or I've got certain pain things going on, why is their first response, well, you're just getting older? I mean, if I was 25, they would investigate why my shoulder hurts, right?
Mhm.
But if
Yeah.
I'm 75, they may just say, well, you're growing older and not really give it the same kind of attention. So you see it pop up pretty much everywhere culturally because we, again, have all been cooked in this soup that has certain messaging about growing older. Same thing's true in the workplace when you think about older workers. There's lots of research now on how good intergenerational workforces are because each generation brings different skills to the table. But that's not what our stereotypes tell us. Our stereotypes are that older workers will miss more work because they're sick, which is actually not true. They miss less work. They'll be slower. They'll be less willing to learn new technology. Just all these things that if you actually dig into the research, just aren't true. So that's the thing. It comes in everywhere and it takes active engagement with your thoughts to go, why do I think that? Why do I assume that? Is that true?
So you say that most people are waiting too long to think about aging, or they have these preconceived notions that they're not necessarily the ones that are responsible for, just because we've been experienced and exposed to it our whole lives. Let's try to shift that conversation. What do you think people should be thinking about in their 40s and their 50s to better prepare? Because that's the majority of people that are really making that turn around the corner.
Absolutely. So first of all, again, I think you need to check your own ageism, right?
Mhm.
What am I thinking about this process? Because I do think it's in your 40s and 50s when you all of a sudden go, "Oh crap, this aging thing is happening to me." Right? It's supposed to only happen to other people. It's only, like it only happens to our parents and then all of a sudden you have that kind of moment. When we're approaching aging, and let me be clear, everyone is aging. We
Mhm.
call it growing up when people are young, but everyone is aging. Aging itself is a natural, universal process. But when we really think about heading into our older adult years, checking our own ageism, because having a positive outlook on your aging can lead to 7.5 additional years of life. That's a well replicated study from Dr. Becca Levy up at the Yale School of Public Health. People who have a positive outlook on their aging live 7.5 years longer. They walk faster. They're in better health, just all these positive outcomes, which you can think about. If I have a positive outlook and I'm looking forward to growing older, then I'm probably going to do things to prepare for that and to make it a positive experience. I'm going to do my healthcare power of attorney. I'm going to do my retirement planning and talk to my financial advisor. I'm going to think about, if I retire from this job that I'm working right now, what will I want to do with my time? What's going to give me purpose and meaning? Because again, I'm looking forward to these years rather than thinking that it's going to be terrible or and burying my head in the sand, or the alternative, which is thinking I'm going to retire and it's just going to be unlimited leisure and bliss, and I'm not going to do anything or have any responsibilities, which is its own trap. Because if you retire and you don't have things that give you meaning and purpose and make you want to get out of bed on a Wednesday morning, that is actually really bad for you because your
Yeah.
brain needs stimulation. It needs things to think about, it needs things to do. Retiring and doing nothing but playing golf or watching TV all day is actually pretty terrible for your brain. And that's a downhill slide you don't want to start. So, thinking about what would I like these years to be like? What's going to make them socially engaging, emotionally engaging, intellectually engaging? And what are the financial and legal plans I need to make that happen?
Hmm. Hmm. Now, you're in the trenches of running a business that helps people think through all of these things. Let's peel back that veil a little bit. What does your day-to-day work look like? What kinds of problems are families oftentimes coming to you with?
I have two sets of people that come to us. One, most people, honestly, are the crisis cases, the people who have not done the planning, who have not thought about it. This is a story something like mom lived at home and she was been independent and everything's been great until fill in the blank, whatever has happened, some sort of medical event usually. And now she's in the hospital and we don't know where her documents are. We don't know if she did documents. We need to know everything about her finances to figure out what she can afford, but we don't know that either. What do you mean home care costs $30 or more an hour? What do you mean Medicare doesn't pay for long-term care? I mean, just they've been thrown into the abyss. And
Hmm.
because nobody ever talked about any of this or even what mom wanted, now we are trying to figure everything out very quickly in an emotionally stressful situation.
Hmm.
That is my most common client. The other kind of client that we have, which I like better, is the one that is thinking ahead, that is planning. So I had a meeting this week with a couple who don't really need much right this minute, but what they're thinking about is we want to stay at home as long as possible. We
Hmm.
know that. What renovations do we need to make to the house? How much does home care cost? So if we need it in the future, what should we be budgeting for that? Should we go look at retirement communities just in case? And so we had an hour-long meeting where we walked through all the different scenarios of what could happen, what it would cost, and we don't have a crystal ball, but we're
Hmm.
making contingency plans.
Let's talk about
And
that. Let's actually, and sorry to interrupt. Let's dive in on
okay,
that. I'm going to ask you two questions in succession. So let's focus on the first one, which is let's go through that exercise. What are the things people need to think about aging in place? And the second question will be what are some of those costs that people might not be, exposed to? So aging in place in the home renovations, what do people need to think about there?
if you're going to stay at home, the first thing you need to look at is the house I'm in age friendly? So this would mean, does it have a master bedroom and a full bath on the first floor so that I don't have to go up and down steps? Does it have an entry into the house that has no steps? So, or that a ramp can be installed in case I need a walker or a wheelchair to get in the house? Does it have any sort of trip hazards? So this would be like on your thresholds.
Hmm.
I call them toe stumpers, but a lot of thresholds have that kind of raised ledge. That is really a problem if you get to a point where you're walking and your feet are shuffling, you're not really
Hmm.
picking your feet up. That's a trip
Uh-huh.
hazard. It's also a problem if you're trying to get a walker or a wheelchair over it. It becomes a problem that way. Also, you want to look around your house and go, do I have wide enough hallways and doorways to move a walker or a wheelchair through them
Hmm.
without banging the house up completely? Do I have a shower that I will be able to get into without falling, right? So a walk-in shower, preferably again a zero entry, so no lip, no
Mhm.
ledge, something you could just, roll a wheelchair right into, roll a walker right into, and then sit down in your shower chair, things like that. Those are the elements that make a house really age friendly. They're also part of what's called universal design. And
Mhm.
universal design is design that is good for people of any capability level, right? If you have any sort of disability, this is going to be a good place for you. And the other thing is, houses that are designed this way are really appealing to everyone because they tend to have wide hallways and wide doorways and beautiful large showers. So it's not, you're not trying to turn it into the nursing home, right? You're not trying to give it an industrial feel at all. You're just trying to make sure that you have nice spaces that so that you can move around safely and appropriately.
Okay. And there are plenty of companies out there that will actually come in and consult and do the work.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't something that, oh, if it's not there, you have to move. You can actually renovate and update to make it safe.
But you wanna renovate and update before you need these things
Mhm.
rather than, I've had a fall, now I'm gonna have to use a walker or a wheelchair, and now I need to renovate my house.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
Being proactive is already or always the better approach. All right, so let's go to the second half question that you mentioned. What about costs for income, in-home care, and other related things? What are those unexpected and unanticipated costs that can pop up?
Home care is a great one. It's gonna vary from state to state. In my
Mhm.
area, I'm in North Carolina. In my area, it's on average about $30 an hour through a home care agency. Right now, that's gonna change, right? It's probably only gonna go up from
Yeah.
here, but you need to look in your area and see what is the average cost of hiring someone to come into your home. Additionally, most home care agencies have a shift requirement, so they won't come out for less than a 4-hour shift. They may have a 6-hour shift requirement. So you can't just get them for like just an hour unless you're going to pay a really exorbitant rate. So, for example, here in my area, if you want them for just an hour, they're going to charge you $1 per minute to come.
Mhm.
So it's going to be $60 for an hour versus the normal $30 an hour rate. So home care, any sort of extra services that you may need. So care management. We are $150 an hour. If you're going to need that, that's something to think about to anticipate in your budget. If you're going to move into not and even if you wanna stay home, you should still look at the cost of assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing in your area, because even though our intention is to stay home, sometimes our care needs do become more than can be handled at
Mhm.
home, and so knowing the cost of those types of care in your area is really helpful. That way you can plan, and I always think it's a good idea to go tour around and see what these places are like, see which ones you like versus the ones that you're like, "No, thank you. That's not for me." Because the communities love to have you come in. They
No.
love to have people visiting. That it's not a imposition on them at all, even if you don't need them right now for you to come take a look.
Yeah.
And Medicare does not pay for long-term care. They will pay for short-term care in a skilled nursing, but they do not pay for assisted living, memory care, long-term stays in skilled nursing. And that is the number one thing that surprises people because they haven't done any research on it. They think Medicare is going to pay for their long-term care, and
It's
they are
not the case.
completely caught off guard when
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Absolutely. All right, for someone listening today that's either aging themselves or caring for somebody else, what's the one thing that you want them to take away from the conversation?
Oh, that their outlook on it matters. Again, that internal voice in your head is and what it's telling you about your aging process or the aging of your family members, like how you are thinking about it, either in a positive mindset or a negative mindset, has a tremendous influence on how it actually goes. And so working on that inside job of how we talk about aging is the number one thing I think people should do because as you start paying attention, you'll start catching it all
Mhm.
around you. You'll hear the things people say, and you'll realize how much messaging you get and how much that is impacting you. And being able to stop that is tremendously freeing, because then you can go, well, no, that doesn't apply to me. They can say that if they want, but that's not what my aging experience is like.
And you're unique just like everybody else. Your aging experience is going to be different from everybody else's.
That's right. If you've met one 75-year-old, you've met one 75-year-old.
I love that. All right, Corinne Auman, where can people connect with you, learn more about your work, get a copy of Keenagers, or possibly even hire you with Navigate Senior Care?
Sure. So my website is CorinneAuman.com, so just my name. And there you can find links to the book and other information about me and reach out.
There we go. Corinne, thanks for coming on today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Buried in Work podcast. Remember, you can save 10% on our estate preparation package and games with code podcast10 at buriedinwork.com.